All right, we'll go ahead and dive in here. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I appreciate those of you that perhaps have been waiting a couple minutes while we were getting everybody set up and sort of ready to move here. My name is Andy Mountain. I'm the chair of the Denver School of the Arts Friends Foundation Board. I own a consulting firm here in Denver, and my son's a sophomore dance major at DSA, been in the school since 6th grade. What we really want to do tonight is begin to sort of talk through a little bit of overview on the school itself, as well as the Friends Foundation, and talk a bit about sort of what we begin to see in terms of both funding with regard to DPS funding and the role the foundation plays, but also to sort of highlight for everyone the success that the school is seeing both academically as well as artistically. I'm going to go ahead and screen share for the time being. We've got a few slides we'll walk through with everybody. And then we'll sort of toggle on and off as we have different speakers come through. We've got a few of the arts directors joining us tonight, as well as a couple of different students to share a little bit on their experiences with the Friends Foundation. But we also have built in 2 different polls that we've got to get some feedback and input from y'all. And then we'll open up with a Q&A at the end. We're anticipating probably talking at you for hopefully no more than 15-20 minutes here. We really want to be able to get this into more of a dialogue format, and then reserve time for probably 40 minutes or so, half hour or so of dialogue back and forth. So quick orientation on flow for the night. We've got, like I noted, 2 different students that are planning to join us tonight, as well as 2 artistic directors. They will each share their experiences with us with regard to these stories of impact that we've got. So that you're able to get a sense from both the student perspective as well as the artistic director perspective on the role that the Friends Foundation support is able to enable for DSA. Built into that, we've got a couple of pieces that I want to walk through with you. One is a high-level overview of the overall sort of performance and success that we're seeing at DSA, a bit on the funding gap that exists between what the district provides and where the Friends Foundation is able to come in to help fill that gap. And then we've got a decent amount of detail for you with regard to sort of the Friends Foundation itself, how our funds are allocated and sort of where they go and how those processes work. And then again, what we'll aim to do is move into Q&A, hopefully by, let's say we'll aim to be there by maybe 5:25. 5:30, something like that, so we've got some time for some conversation here. To lead us out, though, what I'd like to do is initiate first, just to get a quick sense, and I know we've got folks sort of slowly coming in. I think right now we've got about 15-20 folks in. And what I want to do is, as sort of a first orientation for all of us here, is do a quick poll of everybody who's on, of which DSA art major do you have a connection to. And again, if you've got multiple children in the school, go ahead and I won't make you pick your favorite child, but perhaps maybe pick the first one that you got into, or maybe where your oldest child goes. So we'll turn that live now to get some initial orientation there. Goal here really is just to help us get a sense of sort of what we've got as far as overall population within the overall program. So I see a few folks popping in. Go ahead and select that major that best applies to you. We'll give another 30 or 40 seconds here as folks are doing that. All right, you guys are being slow on me. We've only got 4 of you so far that have responded in. All right. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop us here. And so we've got a sense of the mix here. It's good that we have Terrell and Moss on. Dance and creative writing are the most represented. We've also got band as well as guitar in, and then theater, VCA, visual arts as well. So decent representation across. I will give a special call out to stagecraft and design. Right now, we don't have anybody on with students in that program. But I know, as the parent of a dance major who is dependent on those stagecraft kids on every performance that is done, those students are working sort of across the board and are critical to the success of the schools. So just a quick shout out on the stagecraft and design side. DSA itself, a couple of things that I think are critically important to remember here. One is, if you look at US News and World Report, DSA is the #1 high school in DPS. They're the #6 high school, public high school in all of Colorado. Niche.com, which does similar rankings that go down to the middle school level. Again, #1 middle school in DPS, #11 middle school in the Denver metro area is sort of how they break things up. What I want to sort of juxtapose that against is a couple of things. So if you begin to look at sort of DSA by the numbers here, if you look on the right on just the AP performance, and from high school perspective, you've got 103 AP scholars that came through. To put that into some context, that is about 16% of the entire high school population rated as AP scholars. That average AP score of 3.92 really speaks to, I think, the academic success that the schools continue to see. Artistically, just a couple of sort of quick examples here. One is with regard to the scholastic art and writing competition, 13 DSA students honored there, and this is one of the more prominent national recognition awards for arts and writing. And then among those 13 were 3 gold medal winners. We were sort of coordinating with Terrell a little bit on some of the dance stuff, and we look at the 11th, 12th graders going down to Texas A&M last spring for their high school dance festival. The team submitted 5 works for consideration and judging. All 5 of them put into the final performance. And I wanted to call some specific attention to sort of what was chosen as the opening act and selected as best student choreographer for that entire competition was one of our DSA students as well. I mentioned this, and you see the dollars at the bottom because it's legit. On average, DPS is providing about $11,600 to every single school in the district. You compare that to what DSA receives from the district, it's $8,270. To put that in context, we are the 3rd lowest funded school per pupil in all of DPS. If you look at just high schools and middle schools, we are the lowest funded high school. We are the lowest funded middle school. If you do want to split hairs on middle school, Slavens, which runs K through 8, Slavens is technically the 2nd lowest funded school in DPS. But again, sort of they're serving that K through 8 population rather than sort of the straight up middle school population. So that gap that we see between, and again, this is the average, not sort of overall school or specific needs. What I would sort of lay into this as we think about overall funding of an art school like DPS, we receive no additional funding with regard to our artistic focus. So if you think about a traditional high school or traditional middle school with athletics programs, athletics teams, and getting funding through those sorts of things, I consider sort of the arts programming at DSA somewhat of the equivalent, but we get no additional support there. Wanted to give you a little breakdown of student population going across the board, sort of among all of the departments that we've got. From a high school to middle school perspective, we've got this year 652 on the high school side, 431 on the middle school side. It's actually up about 5% from last year. And you see the breakdown there with our largest programs, obviously being the dance program, theater, creative writing, and visual arts, and then smaller programs in that sort of guitar, piano, orchestra, stagecraft and design coming through. I point this out really for a couple of reasons. One is the tremendous success that the school sees despite the sort of funding situation from the district standpoint. And that's really where the DSA Friends Foundation comes in, is attempting to close that gap between what the district is able to fund and what is truly needed for the success of the school to continue. What I'd like to do is bring in Moss Kaplan. So Moss is co-chair of the creative writing department. I'd love it if he could share a bit on sort of the role that the Friends Foundation plays in his program, what he sees as far as from his students, as far as the overall impact and success that we're able to achieve.
Yeah, sure thing, Andy. Thank you. I guess just to introduce myself again, my name is Moss. This is my 23rd year teaching at DSA. My first 7 years, I was in the theater department, and then I switched to creative writing. So I've been with the school really as long as we've been in the current building that we're in, what we now call DSA North. I've been with the school a long time, so I've seen a lot of change in regard to how we utilize guest artists, how we fund guest artists. So I guess the first thing I'd like to say is really just a shout out and a huge thank you to Susan, who for the last decade has really changed the way that we fund our guest artist program, how we bring these artists into the school. Prior to Susan and the Fill the Gap campaign, we were really kind of on our own. Each department was responsible for just raising funds, and then we had some discretion in how we use those funds, both for guest artists and all the other programming needs that we have. And then since the Fill the Gap campaign got rolling, we've really, a lot of that legwork of having to do that fundraising has been taken off of our plates individually as departments, which has been huge for us as department leaders running these programs. And frankly, we've had far more funds than at least creative writing has had far more funds than we would ever had previously to bring in more programming. So for creative writing, I think the guest artists obviously are a crucial part of our program in a couple different ways. The first is we bring in, and every department uses artists in different ways to supplement their programming. There's no prescribed way. We all have different needs to help support our kids. For creative writing specifically, we use artists primarily to come in and offer kind of dedicated, intensive workshops, usually for 6 weeks in all the different major forms of creative writing at our high school level. So we were able to bring in professional writers and teachers to teach different aspects of poetry, fiction, creative nonfiction, which is also like memoir and dramatic writing, script writing, screenwriting. And the ability to do this not only gives the kids obviously excellent instruction, but it also serves in a couple other ways. One of which is artists, our young artists who are in our programs have to be flexible. They have to be versatile. They have to learn how to work with lots of different types of people, different types of artists who offer different things. And by bringing in these people, so they're not only and always just working with the directors of the program, they have to learn how to work with other people's styles. And those people have different approaches. And so it gives them real world experience in navigating all the different aspects of what it means to be a working artist. The second major component, I would say, and this is not just for creative writing, but school-wide, is these artists are like the tentacles into the community. They ground us in our place and our time and our importance in the Denver community. And so bringing these artists in not only supplements their livelihood and their income as artists and as teachers, but really connects us to this community, makes us seen, makes us valuable in that sense, in a real kind of reciprocity kind of way. Like they're fueling us and we're fueling them, and the kids get to make connections with them and really utilize them and all of their connections. So without this ability to do this, I think we would just be a much smaller place. And I mean smaller, almost like, spiritually smaller, right? Like community would be smaller. And they're an integral part of that, So I feel like there's lots of things that make DSA special. We have amazing staff, we have amazing students, But this particular aspect of being able to do this is not only unique to most schools, but also really the kind of thing that makes us special, and I think is a big draw, both for the community, for parents, for prospective students, and all of those components of getting students in the door as well. So that's, I would say, I don't want to speak for too long, but I think those two kind of dual components are really what sets this programming apart. And the fact that Susan and the foundation are the ones who are spearheading the ability for us to take those dollars and channel them in this way is astonishing, really, and really, really unique and special.
Awesome. Thanks, Mas. I really appreciate that. And you'll get a chance to hear from Terrell in a little bit here on the dance program. And what I want to call out is a couple things that Mas was laying out there. One is the ability for the arts directors to channel these guest artist funds in the way that best works for them. So you'll hear a bit of a juxtaposition here, again, sort of a 6-week intensive, what Mas is providing versus some of the approaches that Terrell's able to take with the dance program and his students there. Let me take a few minutes here to walk through the Friends Foundation and the ways that our funding sort of comes in, how it's prioritized, and how we work all of that through. So again, we talked about this of the DSA being the #1 DPS high school, the #1 DPS middle school. That dollar amount I showed on that initial slide is nearly 1/3 less than the average school gets per pupil coming in from the district average, that 29% there. What this creates is this dichotomy where you've got the #1 school in both middle and high school, yet being the lowest funded schools, and that again is where the Friends Foundation comes in. Well, I'm not going to hit all of these in sort of excruciating detail, but I know one of the things from conversations we've had with parents and other donors over the last few years is a desire for more information, not just about what the Friends Foundation does, but how. So let me sort of bounce through these boxes here relatively quickly here. So first and foremost, the Friends Foundation started in 1991 when the school opened. There was a recognition right on day one that district funding was not going to provide all that was needed for the artistic experience that the school was hoping to provide. The foundation itself really serves as the fundraising arm of DSA. Our job is to support the vision and then enhance programming, inclusivity, and diversity. And again, it's that DSA vision that we support. So our work is with the DSA administration to identify where are those funding gaps, where are those funding priorities, where it is most appropriate and effective for nonprofit dollars to come in order to help support and fund. What this enables them to do is prioritize district resources in the best way possible, in the most impactful way possible, while channeling those nonprofit resources into other areas that perhaps district resources shouldn't or couldn't be covering. I think that nonprofit status obviously helps as it relates to tax deductions and those things. You see 3 primary funding areas in the middle there. Our guest artist program, that is obviously our biggest funding program that we've got. Historically, we've been able to provide up to about $400,000 a year in funding to the school in order to support those guest artist programs. I will tell you, up until this year, it would have said $400,000. Based on reductions in giving that we've seen in the last few years, we had to scale back the guest artist program by 25% this year. So we were only able to give to the school $300,000 this year as opposed to $400,000. And that I will tell you, I mean, Susan and I both, Susan is our executive director. We've already seen some requests and asks from different departments on, are there creative ways that we can begin to look at addressing this? And I think one of our biggest goals is that what we can do this year is begin to see that trend shift back, where we've got enough funding coming in that we can restore that guest artist program back to the $400,000. Our Student Success Fund, we'll talk about it a little bit more here. That we provide $40,000 a year, and this is a program that helps students when you think about what Carol was talking about. where I want to get some private vocal lessons. Can you guys help me pay for that sort of thing? Student Success Fund will also cover tutoring. It also helps if individuals need to get, ballet tights or ballet shoes or those sorts of things. Those sorts of elements are what that Student Success Fund is for. Last piece is our Champ Scholarship. So we've got an endowment from the Champ family, from Kay Champ, and it's run through the Denver Foundation, and they provide about $10,000 a year that go towards summer intensives. So these, we accept applications every spring for these. We award as much as we can. Right now, where the averages have gone on the performance of that endowment is around $10,000 a year for that. A couple of other pieces that are important, I think, for everyone to know. One is the role the foundation plays with the DSA box office. So a few years ago, DPS as a district prohibited individual schools from establishing their own bank accounts, or their own checking accounts, I should say. This was done, I think, out of a financial control standpoint in order to sort of ensure compliance and those sorts of things. The foundation stepped in at that point to be the transaction processor for the box office. What we end up doing is we, process those credit card transactions on behalf of the school. And then that also, those funds help pay for sort of the overall operations of that box office. A non-financial piece, but something that we think is important to community, is the block party. I hope many of you were able to join us a few weeks ago at the block party down on DSA South. The foundation itself does all the planning, all the financing, all the execution of that. I say all the execution. We do the planning and organizing. There's a team of people and lots of students and faculty as well are sort of helping in preparing the performances that folks are seeing and experiencing there. That's really designed as a community building effort that's free of charge, available to all families and the broader community in order to sort of appreciate and expand the impact of DSA. A little bit on governance. We are sort of overseen by a board. Our charter has 8 to 16 members on that board. We strive to ensure that board has broad representation across arts professionals, so those that are working in the arts industry right now. One example, Colorado's film commissioner currently sits on the Friends Foundation board. We also want arts educators involved so that we've got that piece coming in. The head of the DU School of Music at Lamont, he currently sits on our board. And then we also recognize the role of parents that come in. And so we've got a number of parents that do sit on the board. I will tell you, anybody who does have an interest in getting more involved with the foundation, I would welcome conversations with you. Just go to dsafriends.org and you can submit an inquiry through there, get in touch with Susan. We can get some conversations going. Let me minimize one thing here. Let me go a little deeper on how each of the sort of main 3 funding programs work. So we'll start again with that guest artist program. So what the DSA Friends Foundation does on an annual basis every spring, based on 1, what we've seen for historic fundraising numbers, 2, what we've got for reserves in our accounts, we identify what we think is a reasonable goal for what we can allocate to the guest artist program for the following school year. So every May we sit down and we say, okay, what do we think that we can do here? As I noted, this past year, we made the difficult decision to drop that number from 400 to 300 because the last 3 or 4 years we've been dipping into reserves in order to keep the 400 whole. We then set that fundraising goal, set that guest artist allocation amount, and we provide that to the DSA administration. What they do is based on how each art department, different departments, like we noted, use guest artists in different ways. Some departments don't use guest artists as much as other departments do. And so they take that full amount that we've got and they allocate among the different departments based on what those historic uses have been. The arts directors then coordinate taking that budget, managing that budget, and deciding how best to integrate artists into their curriculum. And then that money that's transferred, then technically those guest artists serve as sort of either contractors or employees of DPS. So DPS handles the payroll processing in order to get them paid. So that gives you a sense on guest artists. Student Success Fund is a little sort of simpler in that we don't have as much district involvement in that. We've got our fundraising goal. We determine the total amount that we're able to do. We've been able to stick to it, that 40,000 for a couple of years now. And then what we do, and it opens up throughout the year, is students or families can submit those funding applications. We've already seen of the 40,000, about 26,000 come in that we've been able to grant already so far this year. That actually lags behind the request that we saw last year. So we're continually sort of making sure that our arts directors are great partners in that, in helping identify students that may need some additional support and connecting them with that valuable resource. Those requests come in. We evaluate them to verify, one, is it legit? Two, can we justify funding the entire ask or not? And then we make that determination. And then the norm would be we actually pay the vendor directly. So if there's a tutor, we are paying the tutor. If it's buying ballet tights from a ballet company or a dance outfitter, we will buy them directly on behalf of the student. We also do, in unique situations, if parents do need to buy them on the front end, we will reimburse. But the absolute norm to ensure that we're having good control of those funds is that we maintain control of that transaction and sort of make those payments directly. Last piece of the Schomp Scholarship Program. So this is one, the Denver Foundation, again, manages the endowment. They use a multi-year rolling average to determine what each year's allocation will be. They provide us with that amount. This year, we're anticipating about $9,000 that's going to be available for scholarships there. We open and promote the application process in the spring. Those applications come in from students and family. What we do there, this is where we really sort of lean on both Susan on the staff side of the Friends Foundation, as well as a few of the arts directors to help evaluate each of those requests. More often than not, these summer intensives are not cheap. $9,000, it oftentimes won't even cover one entire summer intensive for some of these programs. So really, they serve as a supplement to other funding sources that are coming in. And then again, what we do in order to maintain control of those funds is pay those summer intensives directly for those registration fees. So what I want to do is step into, and what I'm going to put sort of rose-colored glasses on here a little bit. I will tell you the Friends Foundation's highest priority, if we can get fundraising back up, is that we restore the guest artist program to that $400,000 that we've been at. That will enable each of the departments that ended up getting some guest artist budget dollars cut this year to be able to restore those back to where they are. But we also, our hope is that we can create some momentum to increase donations coming in, both directly from parents and other individual donors, as well as our work with seeking grants and other outside funding opportunities. And one thing we'd like to get some input on is where, if we are successful in doing that, where would you see those funds sort of best benefiting DSA? Obviously, the sort of quickest return on investment you can see is sort of probably increasing some existing programs so you don't have as much on a startup cost. So we've included in there, the idea of increasing guest artists beyond the 400, increasing that student success fund availability. We've maxed that out for each of the last few years. Another option would be, expanding the Schomp scholarship dollars with some additional dollars coming in beyond the endowment that exists. I'd like to sort of throw out 4 other ideas to get some reaction on. One is this idea on some of the things that we don't currently tend to fund, and that may be things like extra instruments or art-specific supplies that if I use, visual arts is a perfect example. They are not big users of the guest artist program. But I know talking with folks over there, there are other areas where perhaps they could benefit. Right now, a lot of those are being funded with district-funded dollars. But there are probably some areas where perhaps if we expanded either guest artists or student success fund, we may be able to provide some additional support there. Another one that we've seen sort of some increase on, you heard about the Trip the Dance program, took the juniors and seniors on down to Texas A&M. Every year, the theater program brings seniors to New York City for an amazing sort of Broadway experience of both shows and meetings with folks in the industry. We also know there's a number of, whether it be a writing competition or other like theatrical competitions or those sorts of things, where individual expenses could come into play, and potentially expanding Student Success Fund into more of those sorts of areas. Two others that I want to call out. So obviously, DPS reduced the number of public school buses that were available. That had a direct impact on what sort of transportation was available to DSA. I've had conversations with a number of parents who are concerned about the impacts that has on the student population, where kids who used to be able to depend on that DPS provided transportation are now unable to get to DSA. We've heard some schools look at ways of funding private transportation options or other options on that front. Obviously, expense on something like that far greater than some of those smaller things like supporting minor travel or competitions or those sorts of things. But it's something we've definitely heard some interest in. The other piece, and this is where you think about sort of the expansion of DSA South. Obviously, Johnson & Wales had the amazing culinary program there. They've got the commercial kitchen there. They left everything, including the pans and the wooden spoons and everything that you could possibly need. We've got a desire, and Dr. McWright has plans to launch a culinary arts program out of DSA South. But as the additional facilities become available, we'd love to be able to see potentially some other majors that might come in. So again, I would be curious to sort of get folks' ideas and reactions to some of these on should we sort of do more with what we're already doing? Should we begin to look at new funding options? And let me go ahead and turn that poll live now and get a sense of what your reactions are. Excellent. Looks like we've got about 80% of you in here. I'll give you a couple more seconds to finish up. Awesome. Give you a sense of sort of what we saw coming in. The number one response, about almost 40%, was increased support for the guest artist program. The next two were increased support for Student Success Fund and expanding the arts majors. Both of those coming in around 25%. And then that needs-based support for other experiences, be that the senior trip that theater does, different competitions, those sorts of things. All right, Ellie, I've pulled you in here like 3 times and had you stop each time. I promise not to do that this time here. I really appreciate your patience in waiting with us here. Again, this is Ellie Parsons. She is a senior band major. And what we really were hoping Ellie could do is speak a bit from her experience during her time at DSA and how the Friends Foundation support has been able to benefit her.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, I've been a student at DSA for 4 years. I came in as a freshman, and I'm an oboist. And so the guest artist program and the band program is truly, there's truly nothing that impacts me more. The biggest way that the band program uses the guest artist program is through sectionals teachers that we meet with about once a week. For the oboes, there's only 3 oboes, and so that's one of the most impactful ways that we get to interact with someone who works in the arts field as an oboist. They come in once a week to work with us on our music, and as a double reed player, it's also hugely impactful to be able to adjust reeds and kind of do things that the band director wouldn't traditionally be able to do on a daily basis. The other like second way that the band program uses the guest artist program is by bringing in performers and people that we can kind of see and look up to. A couple weeks ago, we had the University of New Mexico come and perform for us, which was really unique to be able to see the way that students who are just a few years older than us are utilizing music in their college careers and possibly beyond. And then kind of as Moss touched on earlier, the other really impactful way that we can kind of also give back to those guest artists is being able to go back and see them in the community. I've attended many performances of the guest artists outside of school, and it's really special to be able to not only interact with them in an academic like standpoint and interact with them on this like at a school day, but also be able to go and see them doing what they do and be able to kind of see what that could look like for me beyond high school.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ellie. Let me pull in Terrell. I'm gonna swap your little window with Ellie's window here. And let me have Terrell jump in, obviously, from the dance department here and talk a bit about how you're using folks.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. My voice is a little shaky tonight because I'm getting over a cold, but love hearing all the wonderful things about Fill the Gap and the guest artist program. I like to echo a lot of the things that Moss said about the foundation and everything that it does for DSA as a whole, all the arts departments, and Susan heading up the foundation with such great leadership qualities and passion and all the things. So kudos to you. The dance in particular, we wouldn't be able to offer the curriculum that we offer in our department if it wasn't for the guest artists. I always communicate to our parents and tell everyone that our guest artists are the pillars of our program. We wouldn't be able to offer the amount of classes that we offer a week without the guest artists. And we're pretty unique in which our guest artists start with us at the top of the school and they go with us all the way into the last day of school, essentially, with being the teachers, not just one-off, but actually and being their instructional teachers for a year. So really building those professional relationships with those teachers and watching the students grow from the beginning of the year to the end of the year and cultivating them as artists and people and all the things. Dance has definitely been impacted by the shortfalls that have happened with the Fill the Gap program. That 25% doesn't sound like a lot, but it was a lot. We had a men's ballet program that a guest artist, one of our a couple of our guest artists headed up for us and we had to cut that program because we just didn't have the dollars to keep those guest artists on, and we lost after school one of our after school dance program days because we didn't have enough dollars to have the guest artists fill those slots for us. So it's a huge impact. And when we have those shortfalls with Fill the Gap, it doesn't hurt DSA itself. It really does directly hurt the kids because our curriculums have to be shifted and things have to be taken away because we can't provide the classes that we want to provide for the students. In dance in particular, again, having those professionals who are working in the industry with our students is crucial to their growth artistically, and it also starts to build those professional relationships while they're already in school. And so a lot of our students have gotten jobs working in the industry because of their connections with the guest artists that they work with at DSA and vice versa. So it's been very enriching for us to be able to have the guest artists, because if you think about it, if you have two directors for the dance department and we have, I don't know how many, 70 some odd classes a week, there's no way we'll be able to teach all those classes proficiently. And then to offer the robust program that we offer, we've built our department to be a small conservatory model so that when our students leave DSA, they don't have that culture shock when they go to if they want to study dance in college. And a lot of feedback that we get from our alums is, when I got to college, I was prepared because what I'm doing here at school, I've already done when I was at DSA. And so that is because of the direct support do we get from the guest artists, and to be able to offer the program that we offer. And because of the guest artist program has been such a great support for us, last year we were able to expand our curriculum to add a hip hop elective to add more diversity to what we offer. Outside of the ballet, modern, and jazz core curriculum classes that we have. And so we have this dance hip hop elective, which is taught by a guest artist who is an alumni of DSA who graduated in 2017. So it always comes back around to that sense of community, and also feeding back into DSA. So when I came 8 years ago and took over the dance department, when I figured out how the school internally worked in terms of support and how dollars were given to the departments, I said, this is brilliant, it's wonderful, and it's pretty unique. And a lot of schools don't have this, especially DSA being a public school. We're not private or charter. And so we are at the will of the district when it comes to dollars. And so a lot of our fundraising does have to happen internally and does take a village to do so. Nonprofits cannot survive without giving hearts. It can't survive without people getting in the trenches with us, and then also the continuous support from not just one department, for all departments. And so that's why I love the Fill the Gap model, because at some point it catches everybody and what they need. And so thank you to the foundation, thank you to Susan. And dance is the guest artist program is our lifeline. We wouldn't be able to survive without it.
Thanks, Terrell.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we have talked at you all long enough. I want to close out just with one clear ask here. Hopefully you've got a sense of the important role that the foundation's playing, the role the guest artist program plays, as well as the other programs that we run. We are launching our Fill the Gap campaign today. I will tell you, we've been pleased with what we've seen already so far this school year. I think we can only count them on one hand, Susan, but I know we've gotten multiple 10,000 and larger gifts already coming in, which is a real sort of gives us a real sense of hope and optimism for what we're going to see for the rest of the school year. So my ask is simple: if you will join those folks in supporting the DSA Friends Foundation and the important programming that we're able to provide. You can use the QR code on the screen if you want to snap that right now, or just visit dsafriends.org, and that donate button is right on the homepage. We're going to have a recording of this obviously posted on the website. I'm hoping that we will get that up tomorrow. No guarantees tomorrow, but we'll get it up as quickly as possible. What I'd like to do, I know we're pushing up on 6, but I do want to give a chance for folks, if you've got questions or would like to dialogue with us a bit. Feel free to use, on the bottom of your screen, you should see a raise hand button. If you want to use that, you can come off mute and we can talk through that way. If you're a little shy, don't want to be talking and would rather put your question in the chat, the Q&A button there, that'll allow you to put in any questions on the Q&A side. We'll pull those in and make sure that we get those addressed for you as well. So let me open it up to you all and any questions that you've got. And again, just feel free to use that raise hand or the Q&A button. I have a prediction, Susan. The Broncos game starts in 17 minutes. And I think people got it. So here, first question that came in. Thanks, Beth. So Beth Capra has a question. Can donations be directed to a particular program? Susan, I'm hoping you can take that one on sort of how we look at that. Short answer is yes. But Susan, maybe you can expand a bit on how we like to approach those in order to help make sure that we don't end up with inequities within the school.
Sure. Yes, that question does come up periodically. The original model of Fill the Gap was to be kind of more of a holistic fundraising model, which is why it includes the Student Success Fund as a part of the fundraising. It's not just about funding for individual departments. But to answer the question, yes, department donations can be done. But what we hope will happen is that before a department donation takes place, that a donor will consider making a donation to fill the gap that fits their family's budget, start there. And then if they're interested in further donating to their student's department, that's great. The issue is, at this point of the school year, if every single family decided they were going to make a department donation, then we wouldn't even be able to meet our budget that we have for this year of the 300,000. So our goal is to make sure that we're able to fulfill that commitment, and hopefully go even higher than that, so that in the coming school year, we can once again come back up to our 400,000 like we have done in prior years. But to answer the question, yes, the individual department donations can be made, but we just hope that you will consider first donating to fill the gap.
And Susan, if folks are interested in that, what's the best way for them to do that?
So there's a couple of options. You can write a check to Denver School of the Arts Friends Foundation or DSAFF and put the student's major or the major you're interested in donating to in the memo line. That's one option that can be either mailed or dropped off at the school. There is also an online donation form. And if you reach out to me, which you can do through our website, I could send you an online link that you could make an online donation that way.
Thanks, Susan. Second question, I'll take a crack, and Susan, if you want to add to this, feel free here. The question is, what kind of analysis has been conducted about reasons for declining giving? And I'll talk a bit about what we've done to date, as well as what the board has planned later on this year here. So to date, I will say it has been fairly qualitative in terms of direct conversations with a variety of parents and donors. What I can tell you is last year was a tough year. I think Moss and Terrell will both, and quite frankly, even Susan will acknowledge the emotional impacts that last year had on everyone at DSA. And I think many parents particularly chose to express their frustrations last year by stopping their gifts or not making a gift. So that when I look at the fundraising we had last year, there is a direct correlation, pretty much what we saw as far as when, like the pace of gifts coming in, beginning around the October timeframe, we saw a dramatic dip in sort of where that went, and sort of that continued throughout the year. So there's no ignoring the challenges that were last year. I would be curious, Terrell and Moss, I'm going to put you guys on the spot a little bit here if you're willing. Conversations I have had with both parents, with students, and with a few folks sort of from the faculty side with regard to sort of the culture and vibe, if you will, in the school this year in comparison to last year. Curious if any of you want to share a bit on what you've seen that is either different, the same, those sorts of things. Feel free, any of you, if you want to jump in here.
Yeah, I can. I mean, really, just to reiterate what you just said, Andy, I think last year was a really tough year for a lot of reasons. It was almost a kind of perfect storm of things coming together, and part of that was not necessarily, anyone's individual fault. Like, we had a RIB process, which was, district wide, was not unique to our school, but was really fractious and emotionally difficult, not just for the staff, but for the students who were potentially losing teachers that they love. And so that whole process, I think, kind of ricochets in a lot of different areas around the community, and that definitely had a big effect. So I think, obviously, this year, there's been no indication that we're heading back into that kind of territory. So I think we are off to a much better start, a much more stable start to the school year. And I guess the only other part I would say that I think is kind of part of that challenge is change is hard. Change is disruptive. And we've now moved, there was a lot of kind of, uncertainties around the move to the South Campus And now I think also this year, I think we are in a better place around that because we've made the move. Students like it over there. We have a little bit more space in the North Campus. So I think we're kind of moving through some of the tumult to some degree, and hopefully I agree that this year I think we are moving into a kind of more stable landscape, hopefully. So
Yeah, I want to echo some of the things that Ma said, and I agree with him. The biggest impact, and I hit on this earlier when I was talking, is when people stop giving to Fill the Gap, they don't stop giving to DSA, they stop giving to their kids because it's a direct correlation to, I mean, it's a direct support system to the guest artist program. And so when you when you don't give to Fill the Gap, the arts department suffer the most. The academic departments will be fine, but the arts department it takes the biggest hit. And like Mark said, culturally, I think that there's been a cultural reset at the school, and the newness of the new building has really um, kind of given us a lift school-wide. And so it's been great. And so I think we are at a position to really keep that forward momentum and get back to some of the happy that we're used to at DSA. As artists, we will always survive because we're used to doing a lot without a lot, but we shouldn't have to always work that way. And so that's one of the reasons why it's important to have the foundation. But culturally, I think we're on an up and up, and there's been a cultural reset at the school, and it actually feels great.
Awesome. Thanks, Terrell. Susan, maybe you want to take the question about sort of how that per pupil funding calculation works, and sort of why we are as low as we are despite the performance.
Yes. So, I mean, for starters, all of the information about school funding about DPS and where the different schools, come through in terms of per pupil can be found on the DPS website. So I'm trying to find the exact place you go to, but I'm pretty sure it's under facts and figures on the DPS website. Anyway, but the way it basically works is, in a nutshell, every school or every pupil, let's just start, every student there's a dollar amount that the state designates is going to be their amount. So the district is given this baseline amount for every single school. But then when you get further into looking at the different schools, there are things that add more into the full amount per pupil that are based on a lot of factors. One of the factors is high, free, and reduced lunch. If you have a lot of students who qualify for high, free, and reduced lunch, then you get a per pupil add-on for each of those students. If you have a lot of English language learners, you get add-ons for that. There's all sorts of various factors that come into play. And what the story with DSA is that because we don't have a high, free, and reduced lunch population at our school, nor a high English language learner population at our school, and some of these other factors, we aren't getting the extra funds that some of these other schools get. So that's kind of the like I said, the in a nutshell version of what it is. But it is a calculated way that it is figured out for every school based on a variety of factors.
Thanks, Susan.
Susan, did you mention sports already? Did I miss that?
Oh, that's a good point, Moss. So yeah, that's an interesting thing that we've been trying to kind of deal with, which is that East High School, for example, that with a lot of different sports teams, they get a very large athletic budget. That also goes into, all of the stuff. Now, of course, it's for athletics, but they're getting extra money for that. We have been working to try to get what Dr. McWright is calling an activities budget, similar to an athletic budget, with the thinking of, all of the arts and after school time that kids spend and productions and all of this, that we should be getting some extra funding for that. So far, they have not said yes to that, but that is something that people have been working on. By the way, I did find if you go to the DPS website and you scroll all the way to the bottom, there is a thing that says financial transparency. And if you click on that, just kind of fiddle around in there, but you can see where they've come up with the district adopted budgets and things like that. And they have all of the facts for every single school year for like the last 10 years in there.
Appreciate that. Nick, I appreciate the comments about Student Success Fund, and I'll sort of give a quick overview on sort of how we go about sort of soliciting donations and those sorts of things. So a lot of our outreach is predominantly digitally based through emails that the Friends Foundation will send out, as well as sort of events like this and this sort of thing. Our annual gala that we hold every spring is a big fundraiser for us, so that is sort of another piece. One of the other things that the board asked Susan to look at over the last couple of years here is an analysis of sort of where and how can we begin to open the door for more grant-funded opportunities. If we are solely dependent on majority parent donations, I don't think we'll ever get much bigger than we could possibly be. And when we look at sort of the grant landscape, the biggest thing that we're seeing is most grant makers are not keen on supporting an individual school. They are keen on supporting programs that have community impact. And so when we look at the DSA South campus, we see that as an immense opportunity for potential community programming that could happen. One example of that would be Watley Chapel, which is going to be refurbished. I think guitar and piano, is that right? That are moving over there from a sort of teaching perspective. But the main floor will be a performance space that also could be used by community organizations and others. I think with something like that, that opens the door for us to begin to offer additional opportunities for sort of grant funding. I think another thing that we have talked about with Dr. McWright is bringing back some of the summer programming that DSA used to offer. How that does create both a pipeline as it relates to elementary school kids getting exposure to DSA before that middle school timeframe. Also creates great mentoring opportunities for those high school kids. That's another one where I think the broader the community impact, the greater the potential on the grant side. So that is definitely something, Nick, that we are very much looking at. I would tell you, I mean, the more that we can have more donor and parent champions out there spreading the word and encouraging their peers to donate, all the better. Beth, to your point on sort of progress throughout the year as well as what's better. Let me answer the second question first. What Susan loves, and anybody who's ever listened to CPR knows, monthly gifts are the way to go. If we can get folks signed up for monthly gifts, it's easier on your checkbook. It's sort of set it and forget it. You don't need to worry about it. It also helps us from a foundation standpoint do smart planning throughout the year so that we don't end up with a surprise miraculous $10,000 gift that shows up in May that had we known back in January we were going to get it, perhaps we could have expanded the Student Success Fund budget mid-year or something like that. So those monthly gifts are definitely the way to go. One of the pieces that we're really going to push on, and tonight is sort of the beginning of the launch, we'll sort of begin to really roll it out next week, is a push on Fill the Gap to try and fill the gap by the end of this calendar year. And so that will include sharing progress throughout the year, Beth, as you're recommending there, so that folks can be able to see where are we, how are we doing, and begin to push that through. I think all of us, I mean, it is election season after all. I think we're all getting 10 or 15 texts a day asking for donations and all that sort of thing. Nobody wants to be hounded for donations all the time. So I think we're trying to strike that right balance and hopefully really nail it over the next 2 months of getting that funding secured so that we can be rock solid going into the remainder of the school year, as well as our planning for next year. I think while I was talking, folks were, anything else on the questions, Susan, that you're seeing there?
Well, I know there was a question about the bond, and I will tell you that I personally do not have a lot of background on that whole situation. But I do know that the newsletter, the family newsletter has referenced and has confirmed that is correct, that we are not on the bond, and that they suggest that you reach out because they will connect you with somebody at the bond oversight committee that could give you the real answers, because I really don't know the background on that.
Okay, Susan is too closely tied to DSA. As an outsider, I'll be more direct. Find out who to contact and contact them. We were in the bond up until the last minute. And I think it is quite disheartening to see that, you know, the investment that the district made in purchasing that campus, that the phase 2 budget was pulled from that program. So I'll be the aggressive one, Steve.
Okay,
I'll
okay.
make enemies if I have to. I would definitely encourage folks to reach out. Terrific. Let me close out. Again, I appreciate all of you guys for staying on. Again, what we're going to do, we'll get this posted up to the website pretty quickly here. And then you'll be seeing and hearing from us via email and other methods over the coming months here. Again, encourage you to visit dsafriends.org. Nick, we'll reach out to you directly. I saw you offering up being a champion for us there. Anybody else who's interested in that, we would love to have you as our partners in this. And thank you again for taking part of your night. And I believe we're wrapping
Can
up.
I just throw in one
Yeah.
more quick thing?
Yeah.
That one of the real areas we're going to be depending on for launching Fill the Gap this year will be through the individual departments and the directors kind of promoting it, and also getting the parents to help us promote it. I mean, our goal really is 100% participation at the level that fits your budget. So if we could really get the parents who are, you know, interested in helping to kind of get on board with being a champion for the Fill the Gap campaign and supporting the arts directors, that would be fabulous.
Awesome. All right. It's Broncos kickoff time. Go Broncos. Nuggets are tied 6-6. That's my last update for the night. Have a great night.
Thanks everyone.